It was just after midnight in Miami, and the rain was falling hard, the kind that turned neon streets into mirrors and made the world look like it was breathing. The city pulsed beneath the storm, distant bass lines from a nightclub, tires cutting through puddles, thunder rolling low over Biscayne Bay. Eva Morales stood under the awning of a luxury hotel on Collins Avenue, her suitcase beside her, her phone dead, and her patience gone. She'd been on her feet for 16 hours, coordinating an event for people who never learned the word enough. Her heels hurt. Her head hurt. And the only thing she wanted was a shower and silence. The valet had promised her car 15 minutes ago. Instead, a black SUV slid to the curb, its windows tinted so dark they reflected the lightning. The driver stepped out, tall and steady under the downpour, opening the back door for her. "Miss Morales?" he said, voice deep, smooth, with the faintest trace of an accent she couldn't place. She blinked. "You're not the valet. I'm your driver tonight." She frowned. "I didn't order one." He looked at her calmly, rain dripping down his jaw. "You didn't have to. Your employer arranged it." She hesitated. The hotel lights cast gold over his face, strong jaw, black hair slicked back from the rain, eyes dark and unreadable. He didn't look like any driver she'd ever seen. Still, she was too tired to argue. She sighed. "Fine, Brickle key, please." He nodded once, took her suitcase, and held the door open. "Of course." She slid into the back seat, the leather cold against her skin. The car smelled faintly of cedar and something darker, like smoke and rain. As they pulled into traffic, she leaned back and closed her eyes. The sound of rain on the roof lulling her. It took her a moment to notice they weren't heading east. She straightened. "You missed the turn." The driver didn't answer. "Hey," she said louder. "My apartment's the other way." Finally, his voice came, calm, low, unbothered. "There's been a change in plans." Her pulse spiked. "Excuse me?" He looked at her in the rearview mirror. His eyes caught the passing streetlights, dark, unflinching, dangerous. "Sit back, Miss Morales," he said. "It's safer that way. What's going on?" He didn't answer. The SUV took a hard right onto a side street, away from the main road. The city lights thinned. The sound of music and people faded into the rain. Ava's heart hammered. "If this is a joke, it's not," he interrupted. "Then stop the car." He didn't single quotes T. She reached for her phone before remembering it was dead. Her hand went for the door handle, locked. He glanced at her in the mirror again. "You don't want to do that. Who are you?" She whispered. For the first time, he smiled, slow, deliberate, almost cruel in its calm. "Someone who's been waiting for you." Her breath caught. "What does that mean?" He didn't reply. Instead, he slowed the car and turned into a long driveway lined with palms that swayed like specters in the wind. At the end stood a mansion, white stone, dark windows, and guards at the gate. The rain had turned into a wall of water. Thunder rumbled over the bay. Ava's voice broke. "Where are we?" The driver parked by the entrance, killed the engine, and stepped out. When he opened her door, she froze. "Out," he said simply. She shook her head. "No, tell me what this is." His tone didn't change, but his eyes softened, just slightly. "If I wanted to hurt you, Miss Morales, you'd already know." Something in the way he said it, quiet, certain, made her legs move before her mind caught up. The rain hit her instantly, cold and hard. He held an umbrella over her as they walked toward the mansion. Guards nodded to him with a mix of fear and respect. Inside, the air was warm, scented with cigars and money. The foyer gleamed with marble and chandeliers that dripped gold light. A man waited at the top of the stairs, dressed in a dark suit, silver rings glinting on his fingers. He smiled when he saw them, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome back, Capitan," the man said. The driver nodded once. "Senator Vargas." Yvette turned to him, stunned. "Capitan?" Vargas's grin widened. "You didn't tell her?" The driver's voice was flat. "She didn't ask." Vargas chuckled. "Eva Morales. Daughter of Javier Morales, correct?" Her blood ran cold. "How do you know my father?" Vargas ignored her. "You must forgive our methods, mi amor. It's not often we meet someone with such an interesting last name. I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, but you do," Vargas said, descending the stairs. Your father used to work for me. Until he decided to steal from me instead. That's a lie, she snapped. Vargas's smile was pure poison. Is it? He turned to the driver. You can close the door now, Raphael. The sound of her name falling from Vargas's lips faded under the weight of that other name. Raphael. She turned to him, the driver. Her driver, and saw it then. The stillness. The control. The way everyone looked at him. He wasn't a driver. He wasn't a man who took orders. He was the one who gave them. And when he turned toward her and slowly closed the door, the sound echoed through the marble hall like a final judgment. Señor Vargas, Raphael said softly. Eyes still on her. We don't need the theatrics. Vargas raised a brow. You think you still make the rules here, Captain? I know I do. The air shifted. The guards stopped moving. Even the thunder outside seemed to hesitate. Raphael's voice dropped lower. You sent your men after Morales, without clearing it with me. Vargas hesitated, his smile faltering. She's his daughter. That makes her leverage. That makes her untouchable, Raphael said. The room froze. Then, with terrifying calm, Raphael stepped closer, drew his pistol, and placed it gently on the banister between them. Tell your men to leave, he said. Vargas's tone sharpened. You wouldn't. Raphael's expression didn't change. You think because I left the cartel I forgot how to run it? Vargas opened his mouth, but Raphael was already moving. The gunshot cracked through the foyer. Clean and final. Vargas dropped without a sound. The guards didn't move. Raphael holstered his weapon, exhaled slowly, then looked at Eva. Her voice was barely a whisper. What are you? He walked toward her, rainwater dripping from his hair onto the marble floor. You asked for a driver, he said softly. You got me instead. She stepped back, her pulse wild. Why bring me here? Why me? He stopped in front of her. Because your father stole something that doesn't belong to him. And now every man in Miami will come looking for you to find it. Her heart pounded. And you? His eyes met hers. Cold, impossible, alive. I'm the only one who can keep you alive long enough to learn why. She wanted to run. But his hand came up, gentle, steady, touching her wrist just enough to keep her there. From now on, Eva, he said quietly, you don't walk through any door I haven't closed first. The rain hammered the roof above them, lightning flashing through the high windows. And in that moment, standing in a mansion full of ghosts and blood, Eva Morales realized the night she thought she'd met her driver was the night she stepped into the world her father had tried to bury her from, the world where Raphael ruled. The world where safety came at the cost of her soul. Morning in Miami was deceptive, sunlight spilling across Biscayne Bay, the waves shimmering like nothing dark had ever happened beneath their surface. But inside Raphael's mansion, the air was still heavy with gunpowder and unspoken truths. Eva Morales sat at the edge of the guest room bed, the white silk sheets a sharp contrast to the storm inside her. Her clothes from the night before were still damp from the rain. She hadn't slept. Every sound in the house felt like a threat. The creak of the floorboards, the click of footsteps in the hall, the whisper of men who lowered their voices when she passed. Her mind kept replaying that sound, the gunshot echoing through marble. The way Raphael had killed Vargas, with the calm precision of a man who'd done it too many times to count. And the way he'd looked at her, afterward, not like a stranger, but like someone already responsible for her fate. She rose slowly, walked to the window. Outside, men in suits moved around the courtyard like shadows pretending to be human. Armed, efficient, silent. The ocean sparkled beyond them, cruel in its beauty. A knock came. Before she could answer, the door opened and Raphael stepped inside. He was no longer in black. A crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, gray trousers, no tie. His hair was still damp, but his composure was as controlled as ever. You should eat, he said simply, setting a tray on the small table. Fruit, coffee, toast. Untouched. I'm not hungry. You will be. She folded her arms. Do you always break into women's rooms before breakfast? He gave a faint smile. Only when they've witnessed murder and refused to rest. Her eyes narrowed. Don't act like this is normal. Normal? He leaned against the doorframe. In my world, this is normal. I'm not part of your world. His gaze sharpened. You are now. The quiet in his voice made the air hum. Ava's breath caught. I want to leave. You can't. I can't or you won't let me. Both. He walked toward her, slow, deliberate, the morning light catching the small scar along his jaw. If you step outside this gate, every man who worked for Vargas will know. They'll want revenge. They'll want leverage. Leverage? She echoed bitterly. You mean me? Yes. She stared at him. You're calm about that. I've learned calm keeps people alive. Something inside her cracked. And what does that make you, Raphael? My savior or my jailer? He looked at her for a long moment before answering. That depends on what you do next. By noon, the house was alive with movement. Raphael's men cleared out Vargas's remnants, making calls, shifting power like pieces on a chessboard. The transition was silent, efficient, terrifying. Eva wandered through the halls, the marble cool beneath her bare feet. Every corner of the mansion carried a secret, portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. Locked doors that whispered stories she wasn't ready to know. She stopped at a painting on the far wall, a woman with dark hair and cold eyes. Wearing a red dress, Raphael's voice came from behind her. She was my wife. Eva turned. He was standing at the end of the corridor, hands in his pockets, watching her carefully. Was? She asked. She died. How? He didn't answer immediately. Then, someone decided I should learn what grief costs. Her chest tightened. I'm sorry. He shrugged slightly. Don't be. It taught me the value of silence. She tilted her head. You mean vengeance. His eyes darkened, but his voice remained steady. In my world, they're the same thing. They sat across from each other at lunch, her untouched salad, his black coffee. The dining room was too big, the silence too loud. Tell me about your father, he said suddenly. Her fork froze mid-air. Why? Because the only reason you're alive is that name. Javier Morales. She looked up sharply. I told you my father wasn't a criminal. He arched a brow. He stole $10 million in crypto from Vargas's accounts 2 years ago. He worked for the cartel before disappearing. And you expect me to believe he was innocent? Her voice rose. He left when I was 16. We haven't spoken since. I didn't even know where he was. Raphael leaned forward, elbows on the table. Then why did Vargas's men find you? She blinked, realizing she didn't have an answer. Raphael's voice softened. Think, Eva. What did your father leave you? Anything, a letter, a key, a file? She hesitated. He left me a box when he disappeared. I never opened it. What was in it? I don't know. Then we'll find out. Her eyes widened. You expect me to bring you whatever he left? What if it's personal? His tone didn't change. Everything in your father's life was business. That night, the rain returned. Miami glittered beneath it, all glass and greed and heat. Eva stood on the balcony outside her room. The air thick with the scent of salt and danger. Below, Raphael was in the courtyard talking to one of his men. His voice was calm, but his posture radiated command. She watched him for a while, the way he moved, the deliberate precision of him. He wasn't just power. He was control, and for reasons she couldn't explain. That frightened her more than the men with guns, when he finished. He looked up. Straight at her dot she froze, breath catching. He didn't move for a moment. Just studied her from below, rain falling between them like a veil. Then, without a word, he turned and disappeared into the house. Later, she found him in the study, the room dimly lit, papers spread across the desk. He didn't look up. You can't sleep. I could say the same for you. He smirked faintly. Sleep and survival rarely coexist. She stepped closer, glancing at the documents. What are you planning? He met her gaze. To keep you alive long enough to learn the truth. About what? About your father. And about me. She frowned. You think I want to know? He leaned back in his chair, eyes glinting. No, but you need to. He stood, walked to her, and stopped close enough for her to feel the quiet pull between them. That dangerous gravity. She couldn't seem to escape. His voice lowered. You think I'm the villain in your story, Eva. Maybe I am. But sometimes the villain is the only one who can walk you out of the fire. Her pulse quickened. And what happens when you're the fire? He smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. Then you'll have to decide whether to burn or run. Lightning flashed outside. The room momentarily lit in white dot, and for the first time since she'd met him, Ava wondered if fate hadn't brought Raphael into her life, but dragged her into his dot. Miami didn't sleep that night. Lightning stitched the sky above the bay, thunder rolled over the high-rises, and the rain came down in waves so heavy it blurred the lights of the city into something almost holy. Eva Morales stood barefoot in the study doorway, watching Raphael work. He hadn't noticed her yet, or maybe he had, and was letting her believe he hadn't. His sleeves were rolled to the elbow, the top buttons of his shirt undone, the faintest trace of a tattoo disappearing beneath the fabric. He was mapping something on the table. Photographs, blueprints, old letters. Each piece was aligned with surgical precision. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "Do you ever stop?" He didn't look up. "When I'm dead, that's comforting." He gave a small smile without humor. "Comfort isn't what keeps people alive." She stepped into the room, crossing the Persian rug slowly. "You said my father stole something. 10 million in crypto. But Vargas is dead. Why am I still here?" He finally looked at her, the storm reflected in his dark eyes. "Because Vargas wasn't the only one who wanted what your father took." "Then who?" He hesitated, then motioned her closer. "Look, on the desk was a photograph. Not of her father, but of a woman. Dark hair, green eyes. Sitting beside Javier Morales in a restaurant that looked expensive and private. Eva frowned. "Who is she?" "Her name is Ana Torres. She was Vargas's accountant. The last person to see your father alive." Her stomach tightened. "Alive? You're saying—" "I'm saying I don't believe he's dead." Eva stared at the photo, her mind spinning. Why would he disappear? Why would he leave me if he wasn't because he found something he shouldn't have? Raphael leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Your father was running money through shell companies. He found accounts tied not just to Vargas, but to someone higher. Someone in government. He stole the files and ran. Vargas thought he'd killed him. I think your father survived and hid what he found in that box he left you." The room seemed to tilt. "You think I have the key to whatever this is?" "I think you are the key." Ava took a step back. "So that's why you're protecting me?" "Not because you care. Because I'm useful." His expression didn't change. "Care is a luxury I can't afford." Her voice broke. "Then what am I to you, Raphael?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "The one person I can't afford to lose." The words landed like a confession. She stared at him, caught between disbelief and something deeper. "You don't even know me." He stepped closer. "I know the sound of your breath when you're scared. I know the way you keep your fear behind your teeth until it hurts to swallow. I know that when you lie, you look at the floor instead of the eyes. Don't tell me I don't know you." Her heartbeat stuttered. "You've been watching me?" His voice softened. "Protecting you. From what?" "From men like me." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Outside, thunder broke again, shaking the windows. Eva turned away, trying to breathe. "This is insane." Raphael's tone hardened. "It's survival. You think I'm the monster, but the people coming for you, they don't negotiate. They erase. Then what are you?" He looked down, then said quietly, "The man they send when erasure fails." Later that night, when the rain thinned to a mist, Raphael found her on the balcony. She was smoking, something he hadn't seen her do before. The city lights reflected off her skin like broken glass. He stood beside her, silent for a moment. "You shouldn't stay out here," he said finally. "The walls have eyes." She exhaled smoke into the humid air. "You ever get tired of the paranoia?" "Only when it's right." She turned to him. "Tell me the truth, Raphael. How many people have you killed?" He didn't flinch. "Enough that I stopped counting. And you sleep at night?" "When I remember why." She dropped the cigarette, crushed it beneath her heel. "And why do you remember tonight?" He looked at her, the rain catching in his hair. "Because tonight, you asked." He turned to leave, but she caught his arm. "Don't walk away from me." He froze. Her hand on him was soft, trembling. but it held. "You think I'm afraid of you," she said quietly. "I'm not. You should be." She stepped closer, their faces inches apart. "Then why aren't you afraid of me?" He smiled faintly. "Because you haven't learned how dangerous you are yet." Her breath trembled. "Teach me." The air between them tightened. He lifted a hand, brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. His touch lingered, a question neither dared to answer. Then his phone rang. He stepped back instantly, mask snapping back into place. "Ortega." She watched his face change as he listened, calm at first, then cold, sharp. When he hung up, his tone had turned to ice. "They found him." Her heart stopped. "Who?" "Your father." Her knees almost buckled. "Where?" "Cartagena, Colombia." "But there's something else." He hesitated. "Say it," she demanded. Rafael's jaw clenched. "He's not running anymore. He's working again. With the same people who killed Vargas." The world tilted again. "That's not possible." "It's worse than possible," Rafael said. "It's a message." "What message?" He met her eyes. "That the game didn't start with him or with me. It started with you." Her voice broke. "You're saying my father sold me?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. An hour later, the mansion was chaos. Orders shouted, cars readied, routes secured. Rafael stood in the garage, strapping a pistol under his shoulder. His expression was all command again, but something behind it had cracked. Eva appeared in the doorway. "You're going after him." "Yes, I'm coming." "No. You can't stop me." He walked toward her, close enough that she could feel the heat from his skin. "If I take you there, you'll see who he really is. And once you do, you'll never be the same." Her eyes glistened. "Maybe I need to see it." He stared at her for a long time, then handed her a gun. "Then you'll follow my orders. You'll do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run." She nodded, her breath catching. "And if you don't come back?" He smiled faintly. "Then close the door." They left before dawn, driving toward the airport as the first light broke over the bay dot in the rearview mirror. Rafael watched her, her jaw set, her eyes fierce despite the fear. He realized then that she wasn't a bystander anymore. She was the storm he hadn't seen coming, and when this was over, one of them would save the other, but only one would walk away. The air in Cartagena was thick with heat and betrayal, the kind that tasted like metal on the tongue. The city was a labyrinth of old stone and new sin, the Caribbean glittering cruelly beyond its walls. At night, the humidity wrapped around the streets like smoke, and even the stars looked too tired to shine. Rafael and Eva arrived just after midnight. Their flight had been silent. No words, just the pulse of tension between them. The quiet before something irreversible. They were met on the tarmac by two of Rafael's men, who led them to a black SUV waiting beyond the lights. The air smelled of sea salt, gasoline, and rain. Eva sat in the back seat, staring out the window as they drove through narrow streets slick with humidity. Her father's name echoed in her head like a curse. Javier Morales, alive, working again. Her hands trembled against her lap. Rafael spoke quietly into his earpiece in Spanish. Instructions, coordinates, names. He didn't look at her once. When the car finally stopped, they were outside an old colonial mansion on the edge of Getsemani, a neighborhood known for its music, its shadows, and the things done in both. The gate was half hidden behind bougainvillea and guarded by men with rifles. "This is it," Rafael said, stepping out. Eva followed, her breath quick and uneven. "He's in there." Rafael nodded. "Second floor. Top balcony. He's been expecting me." "Expecting you?" He adjusted the pistol under his jacket. "He knows I'd come for you." Lightning flashed across the sea. For a moment she saw the truth in Rafael's eyes, not anger, not fear, but grief. "What aren't you telling me?" she whispered. He exhaled slowly. "That I should have killed him years ago." The infiltration was surgical. 3 guards neutralized. 1 camera disabled. No alarms. Rafael moved like a ghost through the hallways, his shadow blending into the marble and candlelight. Eva followed close behind, barefoot, her pulse hammering. Every corner reeked of money and decay. The walls were lined with paintings of saints who seemed to look away. At the top of the stairs, a door stood open, a balcony beyond it, white curtains blowing in the humid wind. And there, sitting at a table with a glass of rum and a smile that didn't reach his eyes, was Javier Morales, older, thinner, but alive. "Eva," he said, rising as if he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. "You look just like your mother." She froze. I told you once I'd make it right," he interrupted gently. "Now I finally can." Raphael stepped forward, gun drawn, his voice sharp. "You have 10 seconds to explain why I shouldn't end this here." Javier's smile didn't falter. "Because you need me alive more than you think." Raphael cocked the hammer. "Try me." Javier turned to his daughter, ignoring the weapon aimed at him. "You shouldn't have come, mi vida. You were safe until you stepped into his car." Ava's voice broke. "Safe? You left me with nothing. No explanation. No warning." He sighed. "If I had told you the truth, you would have been in danger long before now." "What truth?" she demanded. Javier's gaze flicked to Raphael. "You think he's protecting you, but he's only protecting what's his." Raphael's tone dropped. "Careful!" Javier leaned forward. "You really don't know, do you, Hija? Why you were never just leverage to them?" "Stop," Raphael said, but Javier didn't. "Your mother didn't die in that car crash," he said softly. "She was taken. By the same men who owned him." The room tilted. Ava's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" Javier looked straight at Raphael. Tell her. Tell her what you were before Vargas. Before the money. Before the blood." Raphael's jaw tightened. "Don't. Tell her how you used to drive for them," Javier hissed. "How you were the courier for their shipments, the cleaner for their messes. How you were the man who delivered her mother to them in exchange for your rise." The silence that followed was unbearable. Eva turned to Raphael slowly, disbelief curdling into horror. "He's lying." Raphael didn't answer. "Tell me he's lying." Still silence. Her chest tightened. "Raphael," his voice came low, broken. "I didn't know it was her. They gave me a name, a photo. A woman who'd stolen from them. I was just the driver." "You were the driver," Javier spat. "And when they closed that door behind her, you never looked back." Eva stumbled backward, her pulse deafening in her ears. The storm outside roared, wind whipping the curtains into the room. Lightning flashed, throwing their faces into harsh light. Javier's bitterness, Raphael's guilt, her devastation. "You knew," she whispered. "All this time. You knew what happened to her." "I found out later," Raphael said. "When it was too late." She shook her head. "And you still brought me here?" "I had to protect you," he said. "Protect me from what?" "From you?" He stepped closer, desperate now. "Eva, don't," she said, voice cracking. "Don't he touch me." Javier watched them like a man watching a tragedy he'd written long ago. "You see me, Vida? Hell doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it wears a driver's uniform." Raphael turned the gun on him. "You've said enough." Javier spread his arms. "Then do it. Finish what you started all those years ago." Eva screamed, "No!" But the gunshot came anyway, deafening, final. Javier fell back against the wall, eyes wide, surprise frozen on his face. The echo of the shot faded into the storm. Eva stood motionless, trembling. "You killed him." Raphael's voice was raw. "He would have killed you." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You already did." He lowered the gun slowly. Rain pouring through the open balcony doors. "I never meant to be the one who destroyed you." He whispered. "You were the first one who did," she said. She turned, and Raphael didn't follow. He stood in the wreckage of what he'd tried to protect. Thunder rolling over the city like judgment. By morning, she was gone. He found her suitcase missing, her passport taken. One of the smaller boats from the dock unmoored and drifting toward open sea. On his desk, a note written in her precise handwriting. "You closed every door for me, Raphael. I'm opening this one for myself." He stared at it until the ink blurred. Then he poured himself a drink, set the glass down untouched, and whispered into the empty room. You were never supposed to be part of this world. Outside, outside. The rain began again, slow, endless, unforgiving. The sea was endless, for days. Eva Morales had followed nothing but the horizon, steering the small boat through waves that looked like moving glass beneath the dawn. She didn't know where she was heading, only that every mile of water between her and Cartagena felt like a breath she'd been holding her entire life. The sky changed above her, gray at dawn, blinding blue by noon, then bleeding gold at sunset. She barely slept, barely ate. The hum of the engine and the rhythm of the tide became her heartbeat. Somewhere behind her, back in Colombia, back in that mansion heavy with blood and secrets, Rafael Ortega was still alive. She knew it the way you know a scar is healing, by the ache that refuses to fade. He was a ghost now, but he had left a mark she could never wash away. The driver, the cartel lord, the man who had delivered her mother to hell and spent the rest of his life trying to close every door leading there. And the man she had almost loved. By the fourth day, the fuel was running low. A fishing village appeared on the coast of Baracoa, Cuba. A cluster of houses leaning against the wind, bright laundry flapping like prayers on the line. She docked near a half-sunken pier and climbed ashore barefoot, her clothes stiff with salt. The locals watched her with quiet curiosity but said nothing. She rented a small room above a cafe, paid in American cash, and spent her days watching the sea. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a test. Each morning, she walked the beach collecting pieces of driftwood, small, broken, weathered smooth by the tide. She lined them on her windowsill like bones of a forgotten language. Each night, she dreamed of doors. Sometimes they were open, leading to light. Sometimes they were closed, with Raphael's hand resting against the frame. His voice low and steady. You don't walk through any door I haven't closed first. And every morning she woke, hating herself for the part of her heart that still wanted to hear him say it. One evening, as the sun bled into the sea, the cafe below her filled with fishermen telling stories over rum and laughter. The sound was soft, human. It made her ache for something she'd never had, a life unshadowed by men with guns and names, spoken like warnings. She was closing up her window when she saw him, a figure walking along the beach. Slow, limping slightly against the wind. The same broad shoulders. The same deliberate calm in every step. Raphael. Her breath caught. Her pulse stuttered. For a long moment she couldn't move. He stopped near the shoreline, looking out at the horizon, the last place she'd seen him. The wind lifted his hair, salt spray catching in it like silver. He didn't look up at her window. Didn't wave. Didn't call her name. He just stood there, waiting. And somehow, she knew he always would. She went down slowly, barefoot again, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The sand was cold beneath her feet. The waves whispered against the shore, gentle as breath. When she reached him, neither spoke. The ocean filled the silence between them, carrying their ghosts out to sea. Finally, she said, I should have let you die in that house. He nodded once. You should have. Why didn't you chase me? His eyes were darker than the sky. Because every woman I've ever followed ended up buried by the men who came after me. She looked at him for a long time. You think that's noble? No, he said softly. It's penance. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small weathered envelope, and handed it to her. Your father's files. The ones he died for. Everything he uncovered. The accounts. The names. Proof enough to burn half the men who built the world I ruled. She took it, fingers trembling. Why give it to me? Because you're the only one who won't sell it. And you? He smiled faintly. I've already sold everything worth keeping. The sadness in his voice broke something in her. You could stay, she whispered. Start over, here. No names. No guns, just breathe. He looked past her at the horizon, where the sun had vanished and the sea glowed faintly with the last light. Men like me don't get to start over, he said. We just get to stop. She felt the tears before she realized she was crying. You think dying fixes anything? He reached out, brushed a tear from her cheek. His hand trembled, just enough for her to feel the truth of it. No, he said quietly. But it keeps you clean. Don't you dare call me clean, she whispered. I killed too. He nodded. Then you understand. She stepped closer, close enough to smell the salt and rain on his skin. I understand that what you did broke me. But I also understand that walking away from you didn't save me. He met her eyes, and for the first time there was no command there, no power, no mask. Just a man who'd burned his world down and found nothing left but her reflection in the ashes. He said her name like a confession. Iva. The wind whipped her hair into his face, and he didn't move. If you walk away now, she said, don't look back. Because I won't forgive you twice. He smiled. Small, painful. Beautiful. Then I'll make sure you never have to. He leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers, his voice barely a whisper. Close the door, mi vida. This time it's yours to close. And then he turned, walked into the tide, his silhouette dissolving into the horizon until the sea took him whole. Days later, the police arrived at her cafe. They said a man had been found on the beach 3 miles south, shot twice in the chest, one hand still gripping a gun. No ID, no name. Just a single silver ring engraved with an R. Eva said she didn't know him. But when they left, she went to the beach, dug a small hole in the sand, and buried the ring beneath the driftwood on her windowsill. That night it rained again. The thunder rolled low and distant, like a heartbeat underwater. Eva sat by the window, holding the envelope he'd given her. Inside were names, men who thought they were untouchable, men who'd built their empires on blood. She picked up the phone and made her first call. When the voice on the other end asked who she was, she said only, "Tell them the driver's door is closed." And she hung up. Outside, lightning split the sky open over the Caribbean, turning the sea white for a single perfect second. Eva Morales didn't flinch. She just smiled through the rain. Eyes steady, the ghosts finally quiet. Because this time, she wasn't running from hell, she was walking out of it.